Hey guys, Sky Hyper V here once again with another video. Today we're going to cover crypto staking efficiently part 2. Today's video is going to be covering staking mechanics. If, and I hope you did watch part 1 of this video series, which was the staking math, because it's going to be important for us as we go through the second video, and I'll be referring to key concepts that we learned in there. So please watch that video if you have not watched it yet. This video is going to cover staking mechanics, the real guts of what people wanted to know about how to deal with the wallets, inputs, outputs, staking, splitting, estimation of times, and things like that. The common questions people come up with when they're looking to stake a coin. The two most common questions around staking are, how often will my coin stake? I have some X number of coins. When can I expect to stake? And the second is, how do I control my coins for staking so that they're as efficient as possible with respect to the network and the competition that I have, right? Staking is a competition. It's a random competition where coins, the amount of coins that you have, impact how quickly you're going to stake. So let's get to the first question. How often will my coins stake? There's no real answer for this definitively. There's no math behind it. It is random. But given a significant amount of coins, you can expect to have a higher frequency of staking than somebody with a lower amount of coins. But if you have a coins, an X amount given for that particular coin, like B3 or experience points or compound coin, how do you really know where, give or take, an estimate of your staking time? Now keep in mind, proof of stake is random in the sense that you can have very little coins and somehow get a stake in a day, but it's not going to be reproducible. You're not going to get a stake every day, nor does it really matter because you have such a small amount of coins, right? So let's get to how often will my coins stake? How do we get that estimation? So one thing that I like to do is go into Block Explorer and just compare to what my peers have done, right? As a matter of fact, even before I venture into a new coin and buy something before I stake, I come in here and I look at what other people are staking, what rate they're staking, so I can figure out how many coins do I need to buy to stake daily or at least every other day, because I mentioned in the first video, right, that I like to stake every day to get a good return on my investment and recoup my investment as quickly as possible. So how many coins do I need to do that? And then based on the results I'm going to get here in Explorer through some research I'm going to show shortly, that's when I know how much I need to invest to buy it on the exchange. And then if that risk reward doesn't work well for me, then I skip that coin. Let's look at experience coin first, XP. So I come into the Chains Block Explorer and I just search for the coin here. Now one thing I like to do is I go to extraction and then I look at all these staking addresses. Now these are top rich lists, so I don't really like to look at coins in the high rich list because again, my goal is not to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a coin just to stake. I want to start small, right? My whole investment strategy is start small and then scale. So I expand out all the staking addresses for that particular address, and I find one that's relatively in a kind of a medium range, right? So rich list. Now I've already got one saved here, so I'm gonna search for this address. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay. So this one is Rich List 2011. Again, I just picked it randomly before this video. I just kind of poked around to see what worked out for me. So I just happened to find this one that works out nice. This one has almost 8 million coins. How often are they staking? Well, you can see here that they're staking all over the place between 5 days, a day. Again, this is a lot of randomness, right? And they're getting pretty decent stakes given the number of coins that they have, but they don't seem to be recombining their inputs. And I'll show you what that means in a wallet later, why that's important. But let's go and look at one of their stakes. So let's look at this one right here. So you can see that the difference between this is a deposit, right? And then a minus would be a withdrawal from this address. And then these are actual stakes that occurred. Now, if I were to click on this block, then I'm going to get too many transactions because this block has transactions of this person's stake and other things too. So I don't want to be bombarded with too much information. I'm actually going to click on the hash here. for that stake. And what that's going to show me is a couple really nice pieces of information. One, what was the total input for that stake, right? And I'm going to get into the wallet a little bit later and show you the difference between a wallet total coin count versus the input count, because inputs is what matters when it comes to staking. This was what the proof of system produced as a stake, right? We saw that on the earlier screen. And these two are the outputs effectively split, because many wallets, and there's wallets like Buzz and a few others that don't split your stake, so you can literally just kind of set it and forget it. But wallets that split their stake to make sure that the weight doesn't get overwhelmed, somebody doesn't continue to bombard the network with too high of a stake balance or by an input balance, the wallet stake to kind of level the playing field so that you're forced to essentially go into coin control, recombine, and we'll show that in the video later. So let's do some math here. Let's look at this, right? So this is their input. So let's just do some averages. So we had 7,745,668 coins as this input for this individual. The POS system rewarded this individual for the stake with 41,161. That's the total. If we divide that by 2, we can see here we get 38,93,414 and some change. These two split. What's going to happen in the wallet now for this individual, because they did not recombine. See, right after that was another stake. See this right here? This means that they recombined their inputs, right? They paid some fee or whatnot, and that's probably why they staked a little bit quicker and a little bit higher number, because they recombined at some point. But you can see that they got the stake, and then another week later they got another stake, but it was a smaller amount because that stake was a result of a smaller input. See this? Only one of their inputs staked, that 3.8 million and some change. Whereas if they had been smart about it, they would have combined these two inputs, which I'll show later, and restarted their staking with this higher input. Now let's look at another coin. Let's look at B3. And I mentioned in the first video, you have to be careful about some of the uniqueness, right? In the experience points case, the POS system generated 41,000 coins, and that was completely given to the staker. Now let's look at B3, because B3 is unique in the way that it pays their fundamental nodes. So I'm going to expand out all these staking addresses, and I'm going to find one that happened to be kind of in the mid-range. So I'm just going to search this, trim down my search key so that I can find it. So you see this rich list 3000, right? You don't want to look at rich list 10,000, and you don't want to look at rich list number 1, because that's not going to give you a good estimate. You want to kind of be in the middle ground, or just keep poking around addresses until you know. Like in this case, I'm doing research on how many coins I need to buy. But if you already have the number of coins, and find somebody in this list that has the same number of coins as you, and look at their history to give you an estimation of what you can expect. Although past results don't indicate future results, right? We know that in the market, but what else do we have to go on? So we have to kind of go with that estimation. Let's go and look at one of these stakes. Again, we're not going to click on the block because that will give us way too much info. Well, in this case, it wasn't much of a transaction in there. But many times when you click on the block, you're going to get too many transactions. So I click on the hash of this particular transaction. So this is 94. It says B3, but we know it's 94 KB3, which is 94,000. So we're going to click on this hash. And we see that the proof of stake system, similar to like the XP, produced some reward. In this case, this produced 235 KB3. The input for this was 3145 KB3, which is about 3 million B3. Here's a split, like similar to what we saw before, but then we see this. What is this all about? Well, B3 has a unique structure in that every stake reward, 40% of this reward stays with the staking wallet, aka this input, or this wallet address right here, that ends in HXP. And 60% goes to a fundamental node, right, which is B3's master nodes, that is the next in the queue. So if you look at 235 and we multiply that, So let's do 235 and multiply that 0.6, which is 60% goes to the fundamental node, we get about 141. See this right here? This fundamental node was paid 141 KB3 for providing some service to the network. If we minus that, if we minus 141, we take 235 and minus 141 that went to the fundamental node, we're left with 94K that went to the staker. And that's no surprise because we see 94K right here. But similar to the experience points, the input was 3145 KB3. This individual only kept 94, right, which is 40% of that 235. And that was their new total. And you divide that by 2 and you get 1619 and some change. And so this effectively split in their wallet. And 3 days later, another one of their inputs staked as well. So you can never tell how many inputs a certain wallet has. At least I don't know of any discernible way to do that. But you could see that if this person allows this to continue splitting and they don't recombine, in this case, every time you see a stake followed by another with no transaction fee, that means that they have not recombined their stakes to add more weight, and therefore they're going to keep splitting their stakes into half and half and half into more inputs and effectively get slower and slower staking results. So given that, we now have at least seen some tangible way, some way to estimate how many coins you either need to buy, or if you've already bought coins in that currency, how to estimate your stake, right? Block Explorer is your friend. It's immutable. The history does not lie. It is your source of truth. Now let's look at some of the wallet mechanics. Now that we've done our research and kind of know how many coins we need to buy to hit our target for staking, or we have X number of coins already purchased and we want to get an estimation of what our staking times may be. Now keep in mind those staking times are going to vary because other people are buying, the economy is changing. Crypto is the wild, wild west and is very fast paced. So welcome to the world of volatility where 24 hours can be a lifetime. Let's look at the wallet. One thing I'll mention before we look at the wallet is here's a screenshot I took of my wallet earlier, where you'll see the gray kind of axes there. It's not green. And then there's a little thing that says not staking because you don't have mature coins. When you reset your coins through some transaction, you either send them out or you receive brand new coins, they effectively have a zero staking confirmation, right? They're just started. So they're quote unquote immature. It takes several hours, 3 to 6 hours, and then some coins even take up to 24 hours for the coins to mature before they're eligible, right? You have to hold them in the wallet open before the wallet will allow them to be staked. When you see this, just leave the wallet unlocked and open, and eventually this axis will go green like how my axis is green now. See that? Now let's look at this info. It says it's staking. My weight is 630, which is how many B3 I have, right? It's got a network weight and it's got an estimated time to earn reward. Now, in modern proof of stake systems, that estimated time is unpredictable, unquantifiable. You cannot quantify this value, so ignore it. Use the first part of this video in this segment where I showed you estimate looking on peers as your best guesstimate and not this reward. I'm not, that doesn't mean it's not going to be right once in a while because proof of stake is random. This could technically stake in the next hour. I don't know. Unlikely, so I don't want to say impossible because it is random, but it's a very low probability, right? This is all probability based. You buy one lotto ticket out of billions of other people that are playing the lotto, and sure, you might win. It's not impossible, but it's highly improbable. This says my weight is 630, and that is accurate to some degree because I have 630 coins. But one of the things that trips people up is that inputs stake separately. It is not, the wallet is an interface for staking, just like the wallet has private keys and lets you spend funds. Everything is in the blockchain in the form of inputs and outputs. So even though I have 630 B3 here, and you may have 100 million B3, and you say, hey, Sky, I've got 100 million B3, and you tell me that you stake 100 million B3 in probably 14 to 16 days. Mine is taking much longer. Well, my 100 million is more than likely in one input versus yours might be split, and you may not be aware of it. So first thing we're going to do is open up Coin Control because I want to show you what that is. So in my Mac, I go to the top B3 Qt menu and go to Preferences. In Windows, you go to Settings, Options. So I'm going to go to my Preferences, Display, and make sure you have Display Coin Control features here, and then hit Apply, OK, and so on. Mine's already open, or unlocked. I go to Send Screen, I go to Inputs. And I go to list mode because it doesn't show you. See, this 3 actually shows you that there's 3 address or 3 inputs related to this address. See, no confirmations, no nothing. That's why I always like to go into list mode. Now let's look at this. I have 30 B3. Again, this is all on the same address. Doesn't even matter how many addresses you have in your wallet. Doesn't matter how many coins you have in your wallet. When it comes to staking, inputs are king, right? Inputs are what's staked. So even though my wallet says I have a weight of 630, I'm actually staking these all separately. So going back to an example of 100 million, if you have 100 million coins and they are 33 million, 33 million, 33 million, or 25 million in 4 batches, or whatever the separation is of groupings, you cannot expect them all to input and stake at the same rate as somebody that has 100 million combined. And we'll show how to combine this in a little bit. So again, my wallet has 630 coins, but they're split here into various inputs. What are inputs, right? The blockchain is just an input-output machine. Somebody's outputs, somebody sent me these coins for the preparation of this video. So somebody sent me these coins, that was their output into the chain, right? That became an input back to me, right? These were outputs to me as far as me receiving them, right? They made some input into the chain of some coins. Out came some 300 coins to me, some change back to them. Now these coins are ready and available to be inputs or unspent transaction outputs and ready to be inputs into my transaction, right? If I send these to somebody, my 300 will be an input into the chain, and they'll get their coins and I'll get some change back. So everything is an input-output, and every line here in list mode is staking by independently. See, 120 confirmations. This number here, confirmations are the number of blocks since this transaction completed. So given that there's roughly about 240 blocks a day in B3 average, I know that I've had this transaction probably close to 12 hours ago. Half a day. So now, let's track our staking, right? We've got 120 confirmations. This could go to thousands. This could go to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 before it stakes. And then this will split, just like I had, for an example, I had 600 coins staking. And for the purpose of this video, I kind of fudged this stuff up so that I don't actually have to stake this because it's going to take a while. But when it's staked, I got some reward, and this split, right? So it wasn't really 600 coins, maybe it was 550 coins, and I got 50 coins as my reward. Of course, Fundamental Node gets a little bit a piece of theirs, and ultimately, if my total stake plus my input came up to 600 coins, I would have 2 split inputs here of 300 each like this. If you've never combined your stakes back into an input, then more than likely you have a bunch of these separate splits, and you'll see them with pretty like values that you need to recombine. One of the things that people do while they're staking is they send coins out of their wallet, and that resets the confirmations. So somebody has 100 million coins all in one input, and they're staking along, and somebody says, hey, can you send me 1,000 B3? Or they do some transaction to test, and they send that out. That 100 million goes into the blockchain as an input. The 1,000 goes to some destination. They get their 999 or 99 million and some change back into their address, and the confirmations start back at 0. And you do this rinse and repeat many times, and you'll never stake. You're just not giving your inputs time. So people do this inadvertently. So be careful with that. Your wallet is going to select the right input for that transaction, and it will. So imagine I had this very large transaction in these two that were split, and I want them to continue staking. If I were to send 50 B3 right now to someone, right, I can't take 30 from here and 20 from here if I need to send 50. Either way, I'm going to disrupt this. But if I wanted to send 50 coins right now to somebody, and I were to do it not using coin control, then what's going to happen is it's going to use one of these two inputs, one of these two guys, because this 30 cannot satisfy the transaction of 50. So it's going to use one of these two. I'm going to send out the 50, get my 250 back, and this line is whichever one the wallet decides to choose. There's some heuristic algorithms that decide that. And then this confirmation will go back to 0. We'll show an example of all of this in a minute. I just want to let you know that inadvertently people send coins out, and so that resets the staking. If I have very large inputs and I've got 100,000 here or 30 and I want to send 10 or 15, more than likely the wallet will choose this because it's the lowest input that can satisfy that transaction. But I like to come into here, click this, hit OK. That's the input I've selected, and then I'll go send my 10 coins out to somebody. So sending coins out inadvertently without using coin control can pick any input to satisfy that transaction and reset your stakes for that particular input. Combining inputs, right? That's many times people like to combine their inputs to get more weight. As I mentioned, that is one thing you should do. But when you do that, you're essentially sending coins back to yourself and rewashing them, resetting them, and that will also reset the total amount. But that's okay because in most cases you just staked and you want to recombine right at that moment and then let it start its new path to staking. Then people ask, if I receive coins, will that impact? No. If you receive, it will just be another input. So let's go through this example. One thing we're going to do is we're going to receive some coins to this address. So I'm going to send some coins to this address, and I'm going to show you an example of what the inputs look like after I receive those funds. All right, so we're going to go through a couple examples here of how staking gets impacted and how you can efficiently stake. I mentioned that there's several ways that your inputs can get reset inadvertently, right, without you knowing because you took some action in your wallet. But one way that it does not get reset is if you receive funds. So I just got a very nice Discord member to send me 10 B3 to this address as an example. So you see it's still confirming, but it's okay because I'm not going to spend it right now, but it's at least in my wallet in that address. So if I go to send and go to inputs, remember I had 3 inputs here of 630. Now I've got 4 inputs, and there's my input, right? Inputs don't just get merged. You're not, it's not like a combination that happens automatically. This is a separate entity within the blockchain, and my wallet is tracking that for this address. You see here 3 confirmations, which is what lines up with our transaction. There's been 3 blocks since I've received this. Notice here, earlier I had 121. Now it's up to 124. So it's staking, the age is growing on my original inputs, and this, receiving the funds, has effectively unimpacted, has no impact on my staking of my other inputs. Now let's send some coins out. I'm going to send 20 coins out to someone. And the reason I picked 20 in this example is because it's kind of right in the between here to show you that what the wallet is going to select for me to send these coins back out to someone. All right, so there we go. Pick this guy. Now, my typical workflow is I never just blindly send coins out, regardless of how low they are. I always use list mode, and then I select my input. So if I'm going to send 20, I want to send it out of here. If I were to just select this and put 20, I would say insufficient funds, right? If I put the address in here and I put 20, I'm going to get insufficient funds because the wallet is not allowed because I'm using coin control here, the wallet is not allowed to use any other inputs and says, hey, the input you selected only has the 10B3. If I were to select the 30, now I get no error. So let's go ahead and send without using coin control. Now, if I did this, right, if I selected this, this would effectively reset. That's fine. That's my intention anyways. But I'm going to go ahead and send 20 B3 to this address, and I'm not using coin control. So you can see up here, there's no coin control feature selected. It's automatically selected. The wallet is going to use some heuristics to decide how much to send. So let's go ahead and send 20 out to somebody. So now that I've spent that, look what happened here. I sent 20. So what did the wallet do? It used the smallest input that will satisfy that transaction. The 10 it left alone because it can't use this. The wallet will later select multiple inputs. So if I selected 40, it would use the 30 and 10 or maybe even the 300. It would combine to satisfy larger transactions, right? It would combine a bunch of inputs on my behalf to send that larger input, but it will still select them based on some heuristic algorithm. In this case, I sent a static amount of 20. So what happened to my 30? I sent the 20 to somebody. I paid the 0.1 transaction fee. So effectively, I sent out 20.1. And I got change back. Now that change, of course, didn't come back to my original address. I can always move that and send that back to my main address. We'll cover change addresses in another video. But now you can see this confirmation is 1. My 30 has split into a 20 transaction output and a 9.9 that came back to me. So the 20 is on its way to that individual that we picked randomly from Block Explorer. The 9.9 came back to me, and because that input was broken now, the confirmations have been reset. But you can see my others are still well under control. So be careful when you send coins out. Use list mode and coin control to select. So if I had a bunch of inputs, I would typically, if I know I can spend from multiple of them, like let's say I were to be able to send 20 out of multiple inputs like this 300, 300, and that 30 I had before, if I really must send it out of that wallet, I will use the one with the lowest confirmations, select that one, because I know that will reset to 0, and I won't touch some of the ones that have more confirmations, because again, you want this to age. That's how you stake. So we've gone through receiving funds that did not have an impact on our input. We sent some funds out, which showed the impact to the inputs and staking. Now let's combine. As I mentioned, if you have a high rate proof of stake coin, like B3 was in its 10,000%, Hold and Compound Coin and some of these others, or even Buzz that was in 100% per month, 1,200% per year. When you've got high rate like that, it's very critical, right? From that first video based on the math, it is very critical that you recombine the stakes as quickly as possible. The reason is that when this stakes, it's reset to 0. If I give it too much time to start staking again and then I come and combine it, I've effectively reset that time. So there is a sweet spot of staking that's between 24 and 36 hours for high proof of stake coins, okay? You want to try to hit that sweet spot, whether it is managing your inputs to make sure that you don't stake too often. Because people say, well, if I stake every day, a day and a half, that's great, but how about I stake every couple hours? Isn't that even better? The reason that's not good is because if you're spending majority of your time in maturity, remember coins mature, right? This axis is going to go gray when we do the combining here. So if you stake very quickly or too quickly, you're going to get very little output because the time hasn't passed as much. So your rate is still low for that given time frame that you're staking. You're going to get a little bit of coins. You're going to combine them. Your axis is going to go gray again, and the coins go back into maturity for hours, 3, 6, even 24 hours in some coins. And then you've effectively have over-managed your stake, right? So you don't want to under-manage it, but you also don't want to over-manage it. You want to hit that sweet spot. Now, it's not always going to be possible to hit 24 to 36 hours because, for example, in B3, this 300 coins is not going to stake anywhere near that. It's going to probably be months before this amount stakes. But if I had enough that staked every 5 days, let's say that I had in a coin that these two inputs, 300 and 300, were just enough because of that coin's network weight, given my weight against the network. Let's say that these are capable of staking every 3 days. Well, that's great, but I should then combine them to make it into 600 so that I stake, instead of average of 3 days, I go down to 1.5 days to kind of hit that sweet spot. And if you have a lot of coins under your control and you're staking too frequently, then the opposite is also true. You want them to stay split and go back to that 24 to 36 hour window. If you're staking before 24 hours, you're spending too much time in coin maturity and is effectively wasting time and money by over managing your funds. So at times, this is why when you see these big pools, they start out with one input of, say, let's say B3 started out with that one pool of 100 million or 75 million. And then the pool managers eventually grew that. And once it became under that 24-hour threshold, let's say it got to 150 million, they left the two inputs of 75 million. And eventually those 75 million were recombined into their own groupings of 80 million each, and then 90 million each, and 100 million each, and so on and so forth. And they just keep spanning and scaling that way. So let's combine all of these so that now, when to combine? If you've already spent a majority of your estimated time, you say that 300 coins can stake in, say, a week, and you already spent 4 days staking, it's probably not a good idea to reset at that point. You're effectively going to set it back to zero and you've wasted 4 days. But if I'm already half a day into it, I know this could take months, I'm okay with recombining. So I'm going to select all my inputs. I'm going to copy this main address. I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to copy the after fee because I want to send this entire amount. Remember, even though I have 619.90, I can't send 619.90. I got to send 619.80 because of the fee. So let me send that back to myself. And now I've broadcast that to the network. If I go back into inputs and go to list mode, I've got one input with 0 confirmations that will start to stake again. So to summarize, to stake efficiently, you need to know the math of that particular coin, right? Run the numbers and figure out how many coins you have and what the estimate is and how many inputs you need to satisfy that. Understand the impact of receiving funds, which is effectively no impact, as we showed. Understand the impact of sending coins out blindly or even using coin control. Select the ones that do the least damage if you have to send funds. Otherwise, keep a separate input with some funds. And of course, that will keep staking too on its own. But you can always reset that by sending coins out, and it's not going to really impact your other inputs. And then combining inputs, right? There's also a timing mechanism around that. You combine when it's prudent to do so for that particular coin to try to stay within a nice optimal staking window. If you have too many coins and you keep combining and effectively keep broadcasting very small stakes, you're doing yourself a disservice because you go back into coin immaturity and spend too much time there. See how I recombine this? Now my staking axes say not staking because you don't have mature coins. I have to wait some time, but that's okay. That's a decision I made because I didn't have many confirmations. So I'm okay with resetting it because I know for particularly coins like this, I'm not going to stake for a very long time given this input. So why not reset it and combine everything? So if people keep sending me new coins, I'm just going to let that pile up. And then next time I stake and this splits, I'll select all my inputs, copy my address, send it using coin control with the after fee amount, and effectively reset that, but as one larger input that can have a higher weight for that particular network. So I hope you've learned a lot in these 2 videos, this series on staking. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments below.